Welcome back to the Dynasty Nerds Podcast. I am your host, Garrett Price. I'm here with my main guy, Andrew Mott. Andrew, how you doing?
I'm doing good, man. Just excited to talk about some buys. Look, we're in the second half of the season now. It's like officially the turn of the page. Now we're looking towards playoffs. Yep. We're looking towards how can we win these fantasy championships. So I'm excited to kind of figure out how we can get these teams over the hump to bring home some gold this year.
Yeah, and that's what we're looking at in this video. This podcast, if you're listening to it on only audio form, basically what we're doing here is Andrew and I took a look at the quarterback, the running back, and the wide receiver position. Now, we did not do the tight end because we're looking at rest of season, or not rest of season schedule, specifically playoff schedule. That's what we're looking at. We're looking at their opportunity at the very end of the season to actually help you win a championship and guys that we could realistically get. But the hard part about the tight end position is, it's kind of a mess overall. The guys that are actually going to help you are really, really difficult to get. The guys that could maybe help you for the most part didn't have great schedules. And week to week, it is one of the less predictable when you look at playoff schedules. It's not as quite as predictable as some of the other ones. Like, yes, this team always has a bad passing defense. This team always has a bad rush defense. Like tight end, it's just kind of more of a function of the offense. How much are they going to target the tight end versus the wide receivers? And so it gets a little wonky. But all of that being said, we wanted to focus on the big three positions. So we kind of left tight end out in the cold. So sorry, tight end truthers. Just get a good one and then just keep playing them.
We tried to look at them. I mean, there were some names, but it was like, do I love the idea of trading for these names? Maybe not so much.
Right, exactly. So we don't want to give information that we would not actually do in real life. And that's one thing that does make me laugh. Whenever I play in leagues with listeners, they're like, man, you actually do a lot of the things you talk about. I'm like, yeah, I don't just like, I don't know. Maybe people think it's a conspiracy theory and like, oh, you only do it to throw off your league mates. Like, bro, I don't have that kind of time. I don't have that kind of time to just come out here and do like smoke signals and diversions and mirrors and trying to throw everybody off. Like, I don't have that kind of time. Plus, how bad would that be in real life? Like, okay, that would just make me a bad analyst if I'm just trying to give bad advice to people to try to get one up on my league. Like, it makes no sense. So, yes, we actually do a lot of the things that we talk about on here. If we like a guy on our show, we like the guy in real life, and we're going to try to get him as well. So,
exactly. Yeah, 100%.
It does. It makes me laugh every time. All right, so let's get into the actual information here. What we're planning to do, what we're trying to do for these players that we want to acquire for that stretch run, for that championship run. What players are we looking at and going after? And so, Andrew, you know my guys. I actually don't know your guys, so I'm excited. This will be a little surprise for me. So why don't you give me your quarterback that you're going after for a stretch run, and we're going to assume this is in superflex leagues.
Yep. So the first guy that I have, and you said the quarterback, I'm going to go after Daniel Jones, man. Like, I think he's a player that we can definitely take a trade for, and he's been playing so well to start the year, and he's even had some tough matchups already where people were like, all right, this is a game where we're going to find out whether or not Daniel Jones is for real. And that was against Denver, and he had another one against Los Angeles, the Chargers this week. And he's looked good in all of them. There hasn't been a game where Daniel Jones has really looked bad. So he's a player I definitely feel comfortable with right now if I'm trading for him, trying to win a championship this year. He's 28 years old. I'm looking over at KTC. He's the quarterback 20 on KTC. So people are still very low on Daniel Jones. And it's because of all of that name fatigue and the stench that followed Daniel Jones for a long time there in New York. But over, in fantasy points per game, the quarterback's 7 on the year right now. So there's a big gap between the production and the perceived value of Daniel Jones and those who have him. So like I said, has had some tough matchups. I'm looking at the playoff schedule for him. It's the perfect playoff schedule for a quarterback right now. It's the 7th easiest. So he does have some very solid matchups there. Week 15, he ends up playing the Seattle Seahawks. 16 is the San Francisco 49ers. And 17, your championship week, he gets the Jacksonville Jaguars. So like I said, that's the 7th easiest. If I'm looking to trade for Daniel Jones, I think at this point, I'm comfortable throwing a late first-round pick as a contender to get him in a super flex league because I do think there's staying power with Daniel Jones moving forward. I think he's going to end up getting a contract from the Colts and be their guy. And then also, if you're looking for maybe a tier-up option, if you don't have the first-round pick and you just want to tier up, do you have a guy like Bryce Young? Do you have a guy, in that range that you could throw a second on top of and then get
Sure.
into Daniel Jones. I think that's something I'd be looking at.
And I love Daniel Jones as a pick here because he has the good playoff matchup like we're looking for. But on top of that, this is a player that realistically you could go and acquire. You know, some guys it's like, go get Lamar Jackson for your playoff run. Like, cool, but how often is that type of guy actually available? Very, very rarely.
It's funny you say Lamar because his playoff schedule is awesome. And I was looking at it and I was like, nobody's trading away Lamar Jackson, bro. Like, I might as well just like tell you to go trade for Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase in the same package as well. Like, no. Yeah. So I'm going to give you some realistic options.
Jonathan Taylor's available for you.
Daniel Jones is super realistic, and people who have him basically got a free starting quarterback on their rosters going into the season, and they may be willing to move out for a first-round pick.
They might already have 3 quarterbacks. You know, to them, it's like, he's not going to crack my lineup because I do have Pat Mahomes and I do have Jalen Hurts and I do have Dak Prescott. So, like, he's not cracking my lineup right now. So, to get a first for a player that I just can't use, very realistic possibility. Yeah, like that one quite a bit. I'll go to my quarterback here, and we're in the same kind of vein. A new quarterback in a new city, a guy that people thought was just kind of done and kind of washed. And we had the narrative too of, man, Minnesota just develops quarterbacks really well. So let's move on from Sam Darnold. Well, Sam Darnold's playing really, really solid football this year. Now, his numbers aren't eye-popping, 16.3 points per game, but an incredibly solid and steady quarterback too. And we see that there's times too where he can reach into that upper 20s and get you that high-end production. But here's the thing that I really like about Sam Darnold. Very steady, solid, and not too difficult of a playoff schedule all the way through. We look at week 15. He's got Indianapolis, the 9th easiest team against the pass. Rams in week 16, 12th easiest. Carolina in week 17, the 11th easiest. All of these according to Fantasy Pro strength of schedule. So we have all teams right now that are in the top 16. So easier than average matchups every single week. So it's not even like there's a week in there. It's like 2 of the weeks are really good, but this one's going to suck. Like, you're going to have to bench him for this. No, this is somebody that you could plug and play as your quarterback to today and forget about it more or less the rest of the season. He's just a guy that's going to be solid. He's going to be steady. He has one of the best wide receivers in the game right now in JSN, just absolutely going nuclear every single freaking week. Just goes nuts. And I got to see, I bet he's wide receiver 1 overall by now. If not, he's got to be pretty dang close.
At least 2 at minimum. Because the only other guy that I think has been going just as nuclear has been Amon-Ra. Amon-Ra has been going nuts as well.
Amon-Ra's been really good. But right now, overall, Jackson Smith-Njigba is number 1. He's number 1. Jamar Chase, number 2. Amon-Ra, number 3. They're all very close. JSN, 22.1, 21.4 for Chase, and 21 for Amon-Ra. Now, on points per game, Puka is actually above at 23.1, so 1 point more, but we know he's missed games. So yeah, the number 1 receiver right now in JSN. And even you looked last night, he didn't have an amazing fantasy game, going back to Sam Darnold. He didn't have an amazing fantasy game, but they were going up against Houston, who has a very, very good secondary, and it's a very good defense. And they just put up numbers. They just absolutely put up numbers. 27 points, I think they scored in that game. Like, the offense is efficient and humming and going. And they, right now, even though the running game did okay last night, it is not a safe, steady, safe type of running game right now. Like, I would be much more confident putting my trust in the Seattle passing game than I would the Seattle running game. So when it comes down to it, when they're on playoffs or on the line and things like that, because they're going to be in contention for that, they're going to want to go to their best playmakers. And right now that's Sam Darnold throwing the ball to JSN. So any thoughts on Darnold?
Yeah, I mean, he's looked great. So I think he's also another player that, like you said, new place, new team, kind of the same negative name fatigue that follows his name. So you get him at a little bit of a discount. So maybe not as much as Daniel Jones, because you do have 2 years now where we saw it with Minnesota and we saw it with Seattle. But I definitely think, like, you picked Sam Darnold. I picked the Sam Darnold situation just 1 year ago. So Daniel Jones is in his,
and he was even in Minnesota last year, wasn't he?
What was that?
Wasn't Daniel Jones even in Minnesota for a little bit last year?
Yep. Yeah, he was the QB3 clipboard holder that was kind of just like learning, and they got him, and he got the comp pick for him. I think we got a comp pick for him or something like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, kind of crazy because you see the pictures of like Darnold and Baker in Carolina, and now people are posting pictures of Jones and Darnold in Minnesota, which doesn't make me feel great, but whatever.
All right, let's move on to the running back position. Who'd you end up going with for your running back for the playoff run?
Yeah, so I kind of was looking at it, and I was like, all right, there's some high-name guys that we could go for. I was trying to find you a little bit more of a value name to go for, and I will admit it's more of a rest of season play than it is a playoff. There is good playoff matchups, but you said with Darnold, there's one in here that you might be a little bit weary of. So that's going to be the case here with Jaylen Warren for the Pittsburgh Steelers. So I picked him as my running back. Looking at, his season so far, outside of the games where he missed a little bit of time because of some injury, and then obviously, the bye week that was in there, he's a player that has been a very steady performer for us in PPR leagues. So I like what we've been seeing out of Jaylen Warren this year. All of the worries for Jaylen Warren, where it was like Caleb Johnson is coming in, he's going to take touches, these just haven't happened for them so far this year. So he's a player I'm looking at potentially buying. He's not going to cost you a lot, 26 years old, so we're not super worried about the age for him at the moment. KTC's running back 28, and the fantasy points per game right now is 14.5, so it's the running back 15 right now in fantasy points per game. The rest of season schedule is fantastic for Jaylen Warren. It's the 7th easiest amongst all running backs, and he has a stretch of games here where not only is it going to be very important for you because you're going to be trying to stack wins to get into the playoffs, but also your first playoff matchup of the year is also going to be spectacular because weeks 9 through 15, he's going to face 6 of the bottom 10 run defenses in the NFL. That's Cincinnati, Miami, Buffalo, Baltimore, like all of these defenses that have been giving up big run days to the running back position. He gets to face them. And yes, he has a little bit of a tough matchup. It's a lot of a tough matchup against Cleveland in the fantasy playoffs. But one thing about Jaylen Warren that makes me a little bit less worried is the fact that he gets it done through the air as well. Sure. And he has a veteran quarterback in Aaron Rodgers who is going to check the football down to him as kind of like this savvy decision maker for this team. So I think there's, yes, worry that he goes and plays the Cleveland Browns, but also he has a little bit of a higher floor than your typical running back when it comes to the PPR side. So if I'm looking to trade for Jaylen Warren right now, like I said, I want to keep it value. I want to keep it budget just to give you an extra piece to plug into your lineup without costing you an arm and a leg. I think you can get it done for a early, maybe a mid-second round pick, or if you're looking for another option where, hey, maybe the team has excess running backs and I can go give them a Hollywood or a Darnell Mooney plus an early 3rd round pick and kind of make that up tier at a different position type of deal. I think you could do it as well. But 2nd round pick, I'd be willing to throw that in all day just to get that matchup, especially that stretch there where I said he gets Cincinnati and Buffalo and Miami and all of those guys.
And during the playoffs, you cannot have too many running backs. Like that's not a thing because we know that by that point in the season, there's a lot of guys that are dinged up, banged up, and maybe it's not, true season-ending injuries. They tore their ACL, but sometimes it's just a bum ankle, and it's in week 14, and they're like, we're out of it. We're not going to rush you back. He's done for the year with a bum ankle. Like, you're like, dude, come on. Normally you'd come back week 15, week 16, and you'd be good to go. But so having too many running backs is not a thing in your fantasy football playoffs. So a guy like Warren that you feel really confident most weeks is going to get you double-digit points, but he has an opportunity to boom at times if it's a good matchup, if he gets the ball in the red zone and things like that. So I like that call. And for me at the running back position, I went with this is probably the most expensive player of all the guys that we're going to talk about, but I still think this guy is a reasonable guy to go take a look at. In fact, I actually made a trade today that was in my inbox. I didn't even go out and look for a trade. And so maybe you can tell me what you think. I'm a contending team. It's my 1st and 2 seconds for Bucky Irving. What do you think about that?
Is one of those seconds yours as well, or is it
one of those seconds is mine as well? Yep.
So it's a late second, a late 1st, and probably like a mid or something like that. I like that. I think it's Very strong deal. Obviously, Bucky Irving hasn't been what people have wanted so far this year because of the injuries.
He's
Not
been
really
hurt.
anything else besides that, but I think that's a good deal for you down the stretch.
Absolutely. So Bucky Irving, I literally know that he's you can get him because people are offering him to me at this point. And that's the thing. Injuries, they're going to happen all the time. They're going to happen to players. This year, Jonathan Taylor is the belle of the ball. But a couple of years ago, nobody wanted to touch him because he kept missing time and was injured and blah, 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 blah. Saquon Barkley last year, King Tut, like he was the guy. But before that, he's always hurt. Christian McCaffrey, like these things happen. Guys get hurt, they get banged up. It's part of fantasy football. But when you look at Bucky Irving, we know that especially in this offense, he can put up numbers. And Rachaad White's been fine, but there's a reason Bucky Irving came in last year and just took the carpet right from underneath his feet and just said, yeah, this is my job now. There's a reason for that. And he's going to continue to do that once he's back, once he's healthy. So going after injured players that I think can help me on the stretch run is a strategy I love to implement. Like I said, I still think he's going to be the most expensive probably of all the guys that we talk about, but you can go get him because of the injury. Here's his playoff schedule. This one is really tailored to if you're one of those elite teams and you're going to have a bye, he is a dream because the first matchup against Atlanta in week 15 is not ideal. But then you get to week 16, you get Carolina, the 10th easiest team against the running back, according to Fantasy Pros. And then you get Miami in week 17. Like that is a championship run dream to have Miami in the ship. Like, oh, praises. Like they're so bad. And I don't see anything changing anytime soon. If anything changes because they're getting rid of half their team. So I think Bucky Irving, while it's going to cost you, I think he's going to come back and be just fine and be the guy that's not only producing in the running game, but also producing in the receiving game in your championship runs.
Yeah, and the offense looks incredible. So, like, you're not worried about them having tons of scoring opportunities for Bucky either. And I agree with you. Where it was the running back position, and I was looking, who should I try and pick as my name? I was like, who plays Miami? Who plays Cincinnati? Like, which running backs play those two teams? Because those are the teams I want to target.
Yep, absolutely. So getting Miami that last week of the season is just I now I'm also looking at the opposite, like, man, I hope the team I play against in the ship doesn't play against me because that's a 3 touchdown game waiting to happen, unfortunately. So let's get to our final stretch run here, the wide receiver. And wide receiver, since we're doing this from a super flex perspective, I feel like wide receiver is the easiest position to go get. Getting a quarterback in super flex leagues, not cheap. It's very difficult. There's only so many of them to go around. Like we mentioned, running back, you can never have too many. Nobody's usually looking to get, like, I have too many running backs, I'm looking to get rid of some. Like, very, very rarely does that happen. Every once in a blue moon, but very, very rarely does that happen. But especially in your 10-team leagues, but even in your 12-team leagues, there's an abundance of wide receivers. And people are willing to move those, especially if they're not the elite top tier guys, those top 5 or 6 guys, the Amon-Ra's, the JSNs, the Chases, those guys. So who's some players at wide receiver? Who was the guy that you decided to go after?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that I like the most about your Bucky Irving thing was that you're buying a player that is young, has staying power. So even if you buy him, you can use him for more seasons than just this year. It's not just a contender buy where you get 1 year and you hope there's still something next year. And that's the same thing for my player at the wide receiver position. You said target injuries. How about targeting Ricky Pearsall, a young player who has staying power and has an injury right now where you might be able to get him at a discount? So 25 years old right now, KTC's wide receiver 25. Fantasy points per game right now, he's averaging 13.1, which is the wide receiver 27. Obviously, that accounts for a week 4 game where he left that one early, only played 56% of the snaps against Jacksonville when he left with that knee injury. The reason why I like Ricky Pearsall is the playoff schedule is very good. It's the 5th easiest amongst the wide receiver position. He gets matchups against Tennessee, Indianapolis, and Chicago, all who have been giving up lots of points to wide receivers. I think at that point in the time for the San Francisco 49ers, this is a team that should be healthier. Brock Purdy should be back into the football field. Obviously, George Kittle is going to be worked a little bit more into this offense by then as well. Hopefully, the offensive efficiencies are looking a lot better for San Francisco. So it is a team that is kind of this second half sleeper, I think, for the NFL. Surprisingly, they're still first place in their division right now, but this is a team that's only going to get healthier as the year goes on, and I think that's going to help as Ricky Pearsall gets into the lineup and all this other stuff. So he's a player I definitely like. I think obviously what we saw beforehand, he played Seattle, he scored 15 points in that game. He played Arizona, scored 20 points in that game. We saw the targets. He hadn't even gotten into the end zone, so there's definitely more juice here to squeeze with Ricky. And if I'm going to trade for him, I think a late first is a fair offer just to start it off, is just say, hey, come take this late first for my contending team. I'll take Ricky Pearsall, the injured wide receiver, off of your team. And if you're looking to maybe up tier, I know everybody kind of wants to always go for the draft capital. I like to give you an up tier option as well.
Sure.
Maybe you could go for like a Shakir or a Jaden Reed type of wide receiver and throw a second round pick on top of them just to give somebody that down tier option if they have Ricky.
Yeah, no, I think that makes perfect sense. It's an offense that we know has been good in the past, but it's just crazy over the past few seasons. The amount of injuries that this team has sustained is just bonkers. But when things are semi-normal, I don't know that they've ever been completely normal there in San Francisco, but when they're semi-normal and semi-stable, it's a really good offense, and they're putting up numbers. And Ricky Pearsall is a young guy that you can definitely get because he's not boomed at all yet. He's had some solid weeks, but there are going to be people that are like, he's too injury prone, or I don't know. Does he really have that high end upside? He was a former first rounder for a reason. He's a very, very talented wide receiver. And I think in San Francisco, they're looking for anybody. We're throwing to Kendrick Bourne right now. Like, somebody come be a solid, steady asset for us. And he's got the clearest path of all of their wide receivers to do that because of the draft capital, because of the role and all of that. So I like that call quite a bit.
Yeah, I think it's a very doable buy, especially too, because if you want to, buy the news with Ricky right now, he's not a lock to play in week 8. That doesn't matter to me if I'm buying him for my playoff schedule. He can sit out week 8. I just want him to play weeks 15, 16, 17 when I need him the most, and that playoff schedule is juicy. So if people are worried and they're like, man, another week without Ricky Pearsall, I'd just use it as an opportunity to go keep buying.
Hey, Nerd Herd, want to tell you about a show that we've been doing live on YouTube where we go over your teams and we talk about how to fix your broken roster. It's called Roster Rescue. We do it live every single Monday at noon Eastern time. And if you want to get a part of that, just head to our Dynasty Nerds homepage, go under the store tab, and you'll find Roster Rescue right there. Perfect opportunity to get your rosters in shape before the season or even in the middle of the season to make sure that you can win a championship. All right, well, a guy that I'm going to be going after, he's also missed some time this year, not for the same reasons, but he's missed some time this year, and I know this was your favorite of all of my picks for this one, and I'm going after you're even like, ooh, good call there. I'm going with Jordan Addison, wide receiver, Minnesota Vikings here, and part of this is he's just a good player. I mean, he is just a very good, young, talented player that each and every year, one year he was wide receiver 23, the next year he was wide receiver 24. Like, he just produces. He just produces. And if you're a contending team and he is now your wide receiver 3 or even your wide receiver 4, you are well ahead of the game, my friend. And look, the thing that makes it even a little bit more juicy, when you look at his playoff matchup, in week 15, he goes up against Dallas, the number 1 team as far as giving up fantasy points to the wide receiver. Week 16 is more middle of the road. It's not impossible, a little bit tougher. Giants have been solid this year, but they're still not a team that I fear. I still think you can put up numbers on the Giants. They've just been a little bit tougher. But then in the championship, you already played the number 1 team as far as the easiest. Now you move to the number 2 team as the most easy, and that's Detroit. They've been giving up tons of points through the air, and I know that they'll be getting a little bit more healthy as the year goes on, but they've never been known in this era to be a good team against the pass. You can put up numbers as a wide receiver against that team, partly just because of game script as well. These games are going high point totals and things like that. So right now, Jordan Addison, I think, is a really, really nice one, and he's another one because of his age where it's not just a one and done. It's not just, I'm going to get him for this year and ride off into the sunset. No, this is a guy that could be on your team 5, 6, 7, 8 years and still contribute to your fantasy football team.
Yeah, I mean, I said I loved it mainly as a joke because I like to joke with you
Sure.
guys that every Vikings player is
It's a good
always a
pick.
good buy. Yeah, I love the buys if you're
That
buying a
that's
Vikings
rich in the
player.
Browns, so I get it.
Yeah. But no, I mean legitimately when you look at the playoff schedule, his rest of season schedule for wide receiver is great. His playoff schedule is great. Like I've already talked about him as a buy on one of my channels. I talked about, if you want to pay the premium arm and a leg, go for Justin Jefferson, but I think Jordan Addison is just the better buy because of the cost of acquisition for him. And you look at, everything that he's done since he's got back into the lineup. He missed the 3 games because of suspension, but since he's been back, 15-point game with 114 receiving yards in that first one against Pittsburgh. Then he goes out 15-point game in the next game where he gets a touchdown. And then in week 7 against Philly, how about 130 yards? And then he goes out there and just has another good day. So, yeah, I think he's a very, very solid player, very underrated player. I think he gets overshadowed a lot because of Justin Jefferson. And the reality is, like, Jordan Addison is a high-end wide receiver too most weeks that you're plugging him into your lineup. And yes, I think there might be a little bit of worry for some people here. Is JJ McCarthy coming back into the lineup sooner rather than later going to affect Jordan Addison? I would say probably not as much as some people think, because when you look at the preseason training camp, the report, it felt like it was very good with Jordan Addison. We've seen lots of those preseason highlights be Jordan Addison on the receiving end. So I don't know if it's going to affect him as much. And like you said, the schedule is nice. So even if it is a little bit of tougher sledding from the offense in general, there's still going to be good opportunity to put up points in those matchups.
And if things are really that bad, which I don't think they will be, I don't think it's going to be doom and gloom and JJ McCarthy's just, the worst quarterback we've ever seen and blah, blah, blah. Like, I don't think that's going to be the case. But let's even give the worst case scenario where he just looks awful. Minnesota's going to be competing for the playoffs. If it is really that bad, they'll put Carson Wentz back in there. And who has he been performing with? Carson Wentz. So, like, it's going to be fine either way. We know that he is going to be getting, by that point in the year, good quarterback play, whether it's from JJ or somebody else. He's going to be getting good quarterback play. And with those easy schedules, it makes it that much nicer. So, with that, I think that wraps things up. We don't have any tight ends, like we said. No tight ends. Sorry, guys.
Is there just like, we don't have to go deep into them. Do you have a couple names that you could just list for people to maybe look at for themselves?
Yeah, so a couple names that I would still be willing to go out and look at, and this is kind of, like I said, regardless of rest of season or playoff schedule, just because I'm looking more at players. Do I think they can contribute for me? Yes or no? I think Zach Ertz is always going to be like the cheap, like break glass in case of emergency type guy. He's perfect for that. Most weeks he's going to be very, very solid. I know he had that like bummer game where he had a 0-point game, but then the last two, 16.3, 12.7, especially as Jaden Daniels gets hopefully healthy towards the end of the season, should be good to go there. So he would be one that I would be, taking a look at. Hunter Henry is always another one where I'm just like, it's never exciting to plug Hunter Henry into your lineup, but I know roughly what I'm going to get out of Hunter Henry. He's another one that I could put in there if I had to. But the buy that I had a little while back, and this was like week 2, week 3, when you and I were talking about this, Kyle Pitts is starting to seem like he's a more intentional part of this offense. And the numbers aren't crazy yet, but we are starting to see that value tick up, and we're not seeing those like, gosh, you killed me this week. Like, he's not having those games anymore. So this is somebody by the end of the year, if this continues and Michael Penix performs a little better, could be another one that is still cheap enough that I would be willing to just throw some offers out there.
Yeah, I gave you a little flack on the Kyle Pitts buy, but I've come around, man. I got to give you props on that one because I think it is. You look at the schedule; it's good for him. I do have one more little worry with Kyle Pitts, and maybe it's just that I always have to give him a little worry because he's just hurt me too many times. But some of this was done with Darnell Mooney out of the lineup. Does that change when Mooney is back in the lineup? That would be the one thing that I would look at. But I definitely love Kyle Pitts as a buy. I do think if I was to give you some names, I think 2 guys that are interesting as like young tight ends where, break glass, ceiling falls out. I think you still have staying power with them moving forward would be Brenton Strange. I think he's an interesting player. His playoff schedule is pretty nice. It's the 5th easiest for tight ends. I think Isaiah Likely is an interesting speculative ad if you do think Mark Andrews is a trade deadline candidate, because the rest of season schedule for the Ravens is really good. Now, that said, if you don't think Mark Andrews is traded, you could buy Mark Andrews, and I guess there's a little bit of safety there too, because even if he does get traded, you know that the team trading for Mark Andrews has plans to use him. So there's a little bit of safety with those guys. So I think maybe a Mark Andrews and Isaiah Likely if you want to target the schedule. Likely is definitely more risky, but he has staying power, because I don't think Mark Andrews is on this team going into next season, with it being the last year of his contract. And then, like I said, Strange.
All right, guys. Well, that wraps things up for our show today, talking about rest of season schedules, guys that we're planning on targeting for our playoff runs. Who are players that you are targeting? Let us know in the comments below. And make sure to go out and like all the stuff we're doing, subscribe, comment, all that kind of stuff. It really does. If you love what we're doing, and we've got a lot more planned, more than you guys even know. A lot of good things up our sleeve for the coming months. So make sure to give us all the love you can. We appreciate it, and we'll see you next time.
Peace out.